8:30. We shall go ahead and get started. I've had a few individuals mention the fact they like that we get started at 8:30. Some may not like it, but time starts 8:30, so we'll go ahead and get started with our committee for this February the 20th. The first item up for business, the chair is going to bring up for discussion and possible action, Senate Bill 417. You might look in your packet, and I am going to ask our reviser to give us a brief overview of Senate Bill 417, because it's fairly, if you remember, the bill is one of the shortest I have seen in my time up here. But reviser Lawrence, if you would just give us a brief overview, or lengthy, whatever you prefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be one instance where my brief overview is longer than the bill itself. Senate Bill 417 would repeal KSA 32840, which would remove the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks authority to exercise eminent domain. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, do you have any questions of our reviser? Seeing none, you did an excellent job of explaining a complicated bill. So, all right, committee, working the bill, what is your pleasure with Senate Bill 417? Senator Straub.
Mr. Chair, I would move to pass Senate Bill 417 favorably.
All right, we have a motion from Senator Straub to pass the bill out favorably. And the second by Senator Fagg. Discussion on the motion. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a substitute motion. I certainly appreciate Senator Stephan bringing this, and to you for agreeing to work the bill. But I do have an amendment that would make it longer.
And looks like our reviser has a copy of the amendment that will be distributed to staff and committee members. So we'll hold briefly while the amendment is distributed. Thank you. Senator Francisco, do you have a substitute motion? Do we have a second before we proceed? Second by Senator Ware. And Senator Francisco, if you wish to proceed with explaining your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rather than remove the right, this would limit the right. So as you read, it puts back the current language from the statute, but amends it. It talks about the right of eminent domain in accordance with the Eminent Domain Procedure Act, 26501. So I do have a copy of that with me here, and 501 limits private property being taken except for public use. It does have some exemptions, the Kansas Department of Transportation, public utility, municipalities, but in fact, I think that currently the statute is in conflict with 26501, so, and the Attorney General in his letter said that the thing that he was most concerned with was that taking of land for resale. So this strikes that part of Section B. It also strikes when it talks about protect. It says, currently says add to and improve state parks. I know the legislature has been very concerned about eminent domain to expand parks and wants to see that legislatively. So this allows the secretary to protect and improve state parks. And then the new language makes it clear that using eminent domain for the purpose of access to land already owned by the Department of Wildlife and Parks is hereby declared to be taking, using, and appropriating such property for public use. And I think the one mention that the secretary made, that if there's a flood, it's really important to be able to maintain access. And then, Mr. Chair, I think you pointed out reasonably that it might not make sense for a secretary to be able to make a decision that the Attorney General shall enact. So this changes the word shall to may. The one thing I have in addition to this is I would like, and I'm sorry this is kind of the middle of the night, but I would like to offer wording in the blue that would say this section for the purpose of access to resources and land already owned, and that may more clearly identify the possibility of using it for a boat ramp. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if the committee would have those.
So the balloon, Senator Francisco, that you gave us, you are wanting, for the benefit of the committee, to add in the blue in the middle just the word resources and, so it would be access to resources and land. Okay. It just, one must make certain that the committee understands that the balloon has a couple additional words at the desire of the maker of the motion and the offerer, if that's the right word, of the amendment. So committee questions on the amendment, discussion on the amendment. Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you look through the testimony, the Office of the Attorney General discussed Section B. Does that take care of the concern that the Attorney General had?
Senator Francisco.
I believe that it does, because it strikes that wording that says, for the purposes of protecting land, thereby reselling such property with restrictions. And that's one of the reasons that I thought it was important to make this change. So I did incorporate that letter from the Attorney General. We can ask the reviser if she would agree that this does strike all the wording that the Attorney General had objected to.
All right. Revisor Lawrence, do you have an answer or wish to answer that question?
If the Attorney General was questioning being required to, is it the sale?
The sale.
Sale. Yes, so this removes all of the section that requires any proceeds or any land being given to someone else. So it removes all of that. Yeah, and in reviewing the Attorney General's letter, it does look like this removes the concerns that the Attorney General had.
Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the wording of this, so this would restore the right of the Secretary of Agriculture to declare eminent domain over access land, and water rights are included with that. Let me see where it is.
Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe it's the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks. But yes, I think the other concern that had been mentioned is if you can't trace the water rights to a particular owner, that was also in the testimony from the Secretary of Department of Wildlife and Parks.
Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we currently allow the chief engineer of the Division of Water Resources to declare eminent domain?
Senator Francisco, I don't know if you have an answer to that question or not.
The reviser.
Yeah. Revisor Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to do some research to know the answer to that question.
As in 20 seconds worth of research, or as in more time than that?
It would probably take a little bit more time than that. Thank you.
All right. And I'm sorry, Senator Straub, we don't have an immediate answer for you.
That's fine. Just because of that language in and of itself, I would be opposed to the amendment. If it were simply to acquire land just for access, I think I'd probably be okay with it. But when you get into water rights, that's a whole different ballgame. And I think that's probably one of the most crucial issues facing farmers in Kansas today. And I would be opposed to this amendment simply because of that.
Senator McGinn.
Thank you. Without looking at statute, I'm just going to share that I don't believe that they can exercise eminent domain, the chief engineer. And the reason is that's not their job. Their job is not to go acquire land. Their job is to make sure the water resources are being used correctly and nobody's using more than their allotted amount. So there's no reason, I mean, I can't see a situation where eminent domain would help them do their job better.
Senator Straub.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Exactly. I don't think that the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks needs to be able to declare eminent domain over water rights. So I think we should vote this amendment down.
Further discussions? Are you wishing to close or go ahead and answer some?
I do have one question for the reviser. I think when I was adding 2 words, I said resources or, and I believe when you, Mr. Chair, repeated that, you said resources and I would like to know if the reviser has a recommendation.
Francisco, you are correct. I did say resources and, but your intent is resources or, correct? And so we'll ask the reviser what you are intending for this. Reviser Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the word or can mean one, the other, or both, and means both. So whatever you take from that.
Senator Francisco, do you wish for it to be or rather than and?
I wish for it to be or.
All right, committee, so on your notes, you might change that resources or land. And I apologize to the senator from Douglas for misstating her intention. Further discussion on the substitute motion to amend. Seeing none, Senator Francisco, you may close on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The water rights are already in this statute, so I'm not adding that to this. And I think it is only important when the water rights are part of the land. But I appreciate comments from committee members, and I move this amendment for Senate Bill 417.
With the 2 words resources or added in. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just want to make
Yes,
certain that.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think everyone's aware, Senator Francisco, but don't want any confusion. All right, you have heard the motion to amend Senate Bill 417 with the balloon and the 2 additional words. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. We'll go again. There was some discussion on my right. All in favor of the motion to amend signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion appears to pass. Motion does pass. The bill is amended. Committee, now what is your pleasure with Senate Bill 417? Senator Ware?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass 417 as amended out favorably.
Motion by Senator Ware. Is there a second on the motion? Seconded by Senator Francisco. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, we shall vote on the motion. The motion is to pass Senate Bill 417 out favorably as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. So the bill is passed out as amended. That is all that I had on the agenda for today, committee. I appreciate your work, the discussion. We are adjourned.